Hi, this is Gary, K3OS. And tonight, or at least it's night here, I'm here to talk to you about using cat control with a radio. In this particular case, it's a new Yaesu FTDX10. So the purpose of this whole project has been to add additional functionality to set the radio up, give it a personality so that it's easy for myself to operate. Also to show you how easy it is to set something like this up to make a radio like this or any other radio that can be cat controlled kind of yours. It brings out the hidden controls. You can do multiple commands with a single keystroke. Make it your way. In the case of a Yaesu radio like this or its brothers, the 101 series, it also eliminates purchasing the FH2 controller because it can adopt a lot of those functionalities as well. So what I'd like to do is to show you some of the possibilities before getting into exactly how this is done. Currently I'm using basically some free software, and I'll show you a couple of ways to accomplish what we're doing here today. So for purposes of this, I've got a tablet, an Android tablet sitting here running the application, and a server connected up to the FTDX10. So here we go. One of the things that makes it a little bit easy to set up is, for example, when you want to change modes. For example, when I go into a lower sideband mode or upper sideband mode, I also like to preset the bandwidth and things like that I like. So by hitting the mode switch here, and I'll do it one time, what you're going to see is that the bandwidth automatically gets set to 2700 as opposed to the default 3000. The roofing filter is set to 3 kilohertz. The IPO is set to IPO. There's no attenuation. So some of those things, that's all being done with one command. Now on CW, for example, when I go to CW mode, I like the roofing filter at 3 with a bandwidth about 1200. I like the knob, the function knob, to do the CW speed, and I like the outer ring to control the monitor volume. Now to do that with manually, if you will, is very difficult. However, it's all programmed in a single button. So watch what happens. If I go to any of the CW modes, the width gets changed. The 3 kilohertz filter is in there. The CW speed, if you watch now, is now on my phone. I'm now turning the function knob, if you can't see it. Okay, that's now the CW speed. And my outside ring here is the side tone level or monitor level, which I'm adjusting now. What you can't probably see is that the actual button that says CS, the custom select button, is also illuminated. That's all done with the press of one button. Built into the software, we've got mode. We've also got bandwidths here. For example, let's go back into, let's say, a sideband mode, for example. Again, you can see these things shifting back and forth. You could twist the knob, get to the different bandwidths, which is just as easy. I've set this up, for example, that's 2100. Notice that I've got on this screen, because of the commands and the way Yaesu works, the same command changes the filter width depending on CW or sideband mode. So in this particular case, the command is set it for 2.1 in sideband, or 2100. We'll also set it up for 0.6 when I'm in CW mode. So I've just used one knob to do two. Now if you want to change bands, of course, you can hit the button on the radio and then punch the band if you wish, okay? Or you can do this. Or let me change to a different band. And there it goes to 17 meters. So you can do a lot with cat controls by pre-programming multiple key presses all into one single thing. Let's say you want to do a quick frequency jump. Well, you could actually run the dial. The outer dial will do that too. I've got this programmed to jump 50 kilohertz just by touching the button. And by the way, on this thing, you can also see that the knob controls the frequency. We could actually set that to control the frequency of VFOB instead of VFOA if we wanted to do. One of the things about the Yaesu and some other radios as well, particularly when you're running them with an auxiliary external tuner, the power output sometimes during the tune cycles is not enough to initiate a proper tune. In the case of the DX10 here, the power output is about 10 watts, and when driving my MFJ tuner, the 998, sometimes when you're changing bands, it's just not enough to get a simple tune with the tune button here. Well, the M-Tune solves that. What it does with the press of one button, throws it into radio teletype mode, takes the power down to 20 watts, and hits the tune button, and generates power, and there it goes. And the rig tunes just fine. And the tuner will go and generates power just as it normally would. And then it returns it to 100 watts, as you can see all of that stuff going. What I've done here, even though this program is capable of complete remote control, both audio, two-way audio, and push-to-talk, all that stuff, I've got it set up for pages. These, there are 5 buttons that can be pressed and adjusted by you and programmed by you, and they're done in 4 pages. So you can have a total of 5 times 4 or 20 different programmable buttons. Some of the other ones like mode, bandwidth, this one is programmable. Band is not programmable by you. You can't change it, nor is push to talk. So let me show you a couple of these things. So let's say this is in the CW, so let me drop it into CW mode. And there it goes. Now let me put it on a different band, because obviously this thing is not going to transmit unless it's in the right segment in a transmit section on the band. I've got it on a dummy load here for a second. So if you want to, for example, transmit a CQ, instead of what you'd have to do, you'd have to push the function button, go to message, and then play the message. Okay, you could do that. Or you could simply hit this. A little too slow. Okay. And there you have it. Similarly, this changes the break-in mode from regular full QSK to semi QSK. I'll talk about the contour control in just a minute. The DNR, dynamic noise reduction, is a wonderful thing on this radio, but to set it up, when you have to hold the button down and set the level here, and if you don't hit it just right, oops, it disappears, okay? On the other hand, I can pre-program it here to a setting. It goes to 2, and it's all ready to rock and roll with one with the push of one button. If I go to the single sideband page, which I've done here, I've actually got some of the same controls, as well as I've got to be in sideband mode to do that, don't I? Here we go.
CQ from K3OS, Kilo 3, Oscar Sierra, K3OS, calling and listening.
And so there you go. So it sends the voice memories as well. One of the things the radio has on it is the contour control. It is, in order to get to some of those settings, you've got to push the function, the operation, and now the RxDSP and all of that stuff. Then you have to hit one of these buttons down here and adjust the function thing. Well, it's a lot easier if I do that and it gets preset to whatever level I want and turned on all at the same time. So it works out really, 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 really well. Similarly, it does the same thing on CW. I have it set for 2 completely different peaking modes, and that works out really well. So you say, how in the world does this work? This is a program called Pocket RxTx. It's available free of charge. You need an Android device to make it work on the tablet side, but you can use any cheap Android device. It also needs a server. That server runs on just about any platform. It's a small Java server. So it runs on Windows, which is what I'm running it here, on a Mac, on a Linux machine. It'll run anywhere. But you do need, in order to display this particular screen that I'm showing you, you've got to have an Android phone or an Android tablet. But as I say, an inexpensive or rather old tablet will work fine as long as you can get to the Google Play Store. You modify a simple text file to make these commands work. You do not have to know how to program. So all you're doing is playing with an English text file and putting in cat commands, which are detailed for every radio in the computer control manual that is available. For this radio, I downloaded, I'll show it to you, I downloaded and printed a copy of the manual, which is entitled FTDX10 Cat Operation Reference Manual. And it lists all the commands and things, and you merely substitute those commands into this particular program, load the file, and then press the commands and do it. I should tell you that I debugged this particular program using DX Labs Commander program, which also sends cat macros wonderfully well. Some of you may say, well, if that works, then why didn't I just go ahead and use that? Well, the answer is this. If I wanted to use a logging program, something like FLDigi, and have rig control, perhaps use an SDR receiver as well, all at the same time, you lose focus on the screen when you're doing both computer control of the macros and some of the programs all at the same time. Your mouse has to be over the right screen to make it work, or your fingers or your function keys have to be over. So I've opted to go with a dedicated program like this to make it work. Some of the things you can do, you can bring out that are not necessarily on the radio. For example, let's say you'd like to set up some transmit equalization, microphone equalization, one for your local and rag choose and the other for DX and competition work, where you change the tone settings. You can pre-program them with one push of a button. You can change all of those. Band up, band down functions if you want to do it instead of by a specific band. I've also got, there's also in here auto notch, which is a function which you can see changing over here. That automatically gets rid of the whistle. I don't know why it's not on the front panel, but it isn't. But here, I brought it out so that it is now on the front panel. This program also allows for both a network connection, which is what I'm using, or you can connect it up with an RS-232 cable via USB. Other things you could do, amp level controls, for example. If you're running with an amplifier, one button could easily set this thing up so that you could reduce your power level with one button without having to twist the knob and go into the function, hit the power, drop it down to let's see where it is. Let's see, my amp draws about 52 watts or something like that. So instead of doing that, one button and you can press it. Another button you can bring it back to another press of the same button, bring it back to 100 watts. So that's it about cat control and the FTDX10. It'll work great for this rig. It works great on other rigs. A very simple program. Again, the program is Pocket RxTx, written by Dan Yoma. There's a website and blogs and all sorts of stuff about it, and I'll put a link to that below the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope this inspires some of you to do the same.